Good morning or good afternoon. It's March 10th, Friday afternoon, and I'm going to take a different tack for the introductory video for Chapter 28 of Decker. I'm actually going to just record this PowerPoint presentation from my home rather than using the self-recording studio that I've been using for videos. The reason for this is we've got one more week on the undergraduate campus of classes and then spring break, so I want to get this recording done, and also within the next few days I want to get the one for the following week. I will be gone from Joplin during our spring break, but I will be available for you via email, and then on Thursday we will have our Zoom conference. So the grad class will proceed just as normal. I'm just going to vary the way that I deliver this introductory video. So let's look at Decker, Chapter 28, which is on the subjunctive mood. Okay, Decker in section 28.5 talks about the grammar of the subjunctive. The subjunctive mood does exist in English, but it is dying. You can see some traditional English examples. If I were you, I should not think of accepting. Would that you were in my place. Had I been in your place, I should have laughed. These helping words should, would, or should indicate that what we're using is a subjunctive mood in English. Functional English examples that have some similarity to the way the subjunctive works in Greek would be, we insist that she be kept informed. The be kept would be the subjunctive part. They demanded that the park remain open. That would be how the Greek subjunctive works functionally in English. And so let's look at the Greek subjunctive now. There are 1,857 Greek subjunctive verbs in the New Testament. Most of them are either in the present tense or the aorist tense. Okay, there are some perfect, just a handful of perfect subjunctives. They won't cause you any problem. Now, subjunctive verbs express potential, which means regarding time, they usually relate to the future. A lot of beginning Greek students see the aorist indicative and come up with the idea that any aorist means past tense. Of course, most of the aorist indicatives in the New Testament do indicate past tense, and I subscribe to the theory that the presence of an augment, which, by the way, exists only in the present, only in the indicative mood, is past time referring. Participles don't have augments. Infinitives don't have augments. And the subjunctive mood verbs do not have augments. And so an aorist subjunctive most likely, as far as time goes, refers to the future, because subjunctive verbs express potential. And so for exegesis, verbal aspect is key, but the problem is, by your English translation, you will not be able to tell what the verbal aspect of the Greek subjunctive verb is, because that will not be distinguishable when put into English. And so that's the kind of under-the-hood exegetical thing that you should do. Now, often when using English to translate a Greek subjunctive, we'll use a helping verb should or might. When we see the examples, that will become clearer in your mind. Now, the form of the subjunctive, we got the stem. There's no augment ever. We've got the form marker, and when we look at some of the forms, that will become more clear. And then the key thing is the lengthened connecting vowel before personal endings. In fact, this quotation I took straight from Decker's text. The key to identifying a subjunctive mood verb is a lengthened connecting vowel. So let's see how that works. You can see the chart here. We've got present active indicative, present middle indicative. We've got present active subjunctive, present middle subjunctive. We've got aorist active subjunctive, aorist middle subjunctive. And then we have a second aorist for verbs that don't have first aorist. We've got second aorist active and second aorist middle. And so here in your present tense, you've got these endings ois, I, omen, ete, usi, ome, e, ete, ometha, este, onde, and we have seen all of those verbs. However, when we take these present tense verbs into the subjunctive mood, I've highlighted kind of in greenish tint the lengthened connecting vowel that results in that. Now, as far as pronunciation, since we do not distinguish in pronunciation between the omicron and the omega, these will sound the same. This one where you've got an epsilon sounds like e. The eta sounds like a. There will be a slight differentiation in pronunciation, but in all of the subjunctives, you've got a lengthened connecting vowel. Now, what about the aorist active subjunctive or the aorist middle subjunctive? Notice we are going to have the same kind of lengthened connecting vowels. I guess I forgot to shade this eta in a greenish tint, but you can see how those endings work. The form marker comes into play with the aorist subjunctive because, as you have seen before, first aorist verbs have a predominance of sigma. In the first aorist indicative, we got sigma alpha as a form marker. And so the difference between a present subjunctive and a typical first aorist subjunctive for any verb that would have first aorist forms will be the presence of this sigma. Now, I would tell you that outside of the indicative, the aorist subjunctives will be more prominent, and there will be more aorist subjunctives than there will be present. And so I like to express that usually the default subjunctive, same thing as the default imperative, that will be used in conversation would be the aorist subjunctive instead of the present. And the difference would be that of verbal aspect. And so when a writer or a speaker uses something that's not the default form, we need to pay attention to that. Now, the last column here would be verbs who take a second aorist form. And remember, verbs that take a second aorist form will always have a stem change of some sort. And so the lexical form is lamvano. The root in the aorist is lav. We lose that mu. Okay? And so basically what you have would be the same endings with lengthened connecting vowels, but we've got a stem change. So in the second aorist, you will not see that form marker of the sigma to help you, but you will have the stem change. If you see a stem change, think aorist. Okay? Aorist middle, our pattern verb, will be the aorist form of yinome, and of course, in the lexicons, that will be spelled gamma iota, nu, etc. In Ben Cantor's alternate spelling of BLC Semester 2, we will have an epsilon iota. Many times, pronunciation is the same. But in the aorist, that yin changes stem, just a slight change to yin. Okay? And so we've got our lengthened connecting vowels. That's pretty easy, really. There is never an augment outside of the indicative mood, and so in these forms, you don't see any augments because they're subjunctives. They don't have augments, but you've got your lengthened connecting vowel to help you see that it is a subjunctive. Now, there are some other subjunctive forms. You can just look at the chart yourself. You can see the present subjunctive of imi, the aorist passive subjunctive of liu, and notice, just as we are accustomed to seeing in an aorist passive, we've got the presence of at least a theta. Sometimes it's going to be a theta omega. Remember, that is a lengthened connecting vowel. Sometimes we'll have the theta eta, but the presence of a theta will indicate to us that it is aorist and that it is passive. The perfect active subjunctive of either, by form, by morphology, the verb either, I know, is a perfect, it's actually a second perfect form. And so it has variations, but once again, you can see these vowels are lengthened at every point. Okay, now, important, the following Greek particles always take a subjunctive. A number of key words govern the subjunctive mood. In the examples earlier in this chapter, you probably noticed that words other than just the subjunctive verb were marked. These key words, ina, ean, otan, eos, and any form of an, might be osan, otan, you see, the particle an will always bring about the use of a subjunctive. It's a particle that makes something contingent that wasn't. And so ina, which means in order that or so that, if is a conditional particle. When you have this form, ean, it will be followed by a subjunctive verb. The other particle for if is e, written epsilon iota, and it will always be followed by an indicative verb. And so Robert Plummer would point to these forms as expecting a subjunctive, and he would bump, 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 kind of like that pickup truck that has a beeper when it's put into reverse. It's back at beep, beep, beep. I'm backing up, pay attention, beep, beep, beep. When you see one of these particles, you can know that a subjunctive mood verb is coming. Now, the last thing I'm going to do in this short presentation is just list the usages of the subjunctive. That's section 28.25 and following. And so we'll go section by section. Denotes purpose, usually with ina. Okay, beep, 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 subjunctive verb coming. When we use ina, it will be because there's a purpose in order that something take place, and that something that takes place will be a verb in the subjunctive mood. We've got the case of what we call a hortatory subjunctive, described in 28.27. This will generally be when the subjunctive verb is in the first person plural, and our translation in English will be, let us, whatever verb, let us proceed, let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good works. I'm thinking of Hebrews 10 right now. And so the hortatory subjunctive is in the first person plural constructions. We've got conditions with the conditional particle ean. I just talked about that a few minutes ago. We've got a case that we call emphatic negation. Actually, section 28.29 in Decker's text uses the term strong negation. What we've got is we've got redundant negative particles. We'll have ou me plus a verb in the subjunctive. Now, you should have picked up already that the meaning of ou is no or not. The meaning of me is no or not. Generally, ou is used in an indicative structure. Me is used outside of the indicative. It's used for particles. It's used for infinitives. It's used for subjunctive verbs. It's used for everything that's not an indicative. And the strongest way to say, it ain't happening, is ume with a verb in the subjunctive. It's kind of like the cheerleaders when I was in high school used to have this cheer and it went, no, no, never, never, That's our ume with a verb in the subjunctive. Section 2830, we've got indefinite relative statements. Os, of course, is a relative pronoun. It means who. But if you add an on to it, what you're doing is that you're making it more contingent or more potential. And so an os by itself is who, and os on is a whoever. Also, we'll have temporal statements with particles like eos ou, which, by the way, will take its object in the genitive. Eos is really kind of like a preposition, taking its object in the genitive. And otan, we've had the verb ote, the particle ote, which means when. If you take ote and you convert it to otan, it becomes whenever. So it's less certain, more potential, and that's kind of the flavor of the subjunctive. So anyway, that's what we've got, and we'll keep on working with that. I hope you have a great week studying. Bye-bye.